Hello, and welcome to the TBI podcast, Those Bored Individuals. Oh, well, 2 months has passed, and Dudley and Michael are back.
Yay!
Oh,
Well, you're back.
you sound so thrilled to have us back, Rowan.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my golly, the past few months have been pretty ridiculous. Not only in terms of what's happening in the world, but between all of us, a lot of things have been happening. Rowan took over the podcast, she got COVID and she got cured. Dudley got COVID, and I don't know what the status on him is yet. Not only that, but me, him, and Ali went to see Scribble Showdown in Edinburgh, and I got noticed twice.
Oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot has been going on. So, how's everyone been since the last podcast?
Okay.
Good.
I am COVID cured, so
Yay!
Yay.
even though I never really felt. I kind of got it at the end of a 5-week chest infection, and when I had COVID for 5 days, I barely felt ill. Like, it was just having a couple of days off.
Yeah.
I don't have it now.
It gave me a little bit of a scare when we were in Edinburgh because of your coughing fit, but still,
Yes.
I was fine. So,
That's good.
yeah.
I tested before I went to Edinburgh, so it said negative. So I took precautions.
So yeah, just before we start talking about recent media and such, I think it's time we talk in detail about our recent trip to Edinburgh, Dudley.
Yes. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I got to meet up with Ali and her mum Janine, so yeah, it was a great weekend.
It was the third time I've met Daniel in person. The first time I've met Ali in person. So it's
I haven't met anyone in person yet, but in the future, I'm hoping to meet Snake Staff in person.
Oh, you will.
Oh, yeah.
In more ways than one.
Oh, God.
So, what can we say about the trip? Well, we toured around Edinburgh for quite a bit. I kind of acted as a tour guide for Ali and Dudley and co. So, yeah. One instant I remember, we were in the castle park, like the park at the foot of the castle, and we saw this statue of like a soldier next to a bear, and I was like, wait, is that Corporal Wojtek? And so we went in for closer inspection, and sure enough, it was. And I was like, yes, I got it right. And so I went on to explain to Dudley and Ali of Corporal Wojtek. So, Corporal Wojtek, he had the strength of 10 men. He famously helped out in battle by carrying huge ammo boxes that no other person can hold. And then Dudley immediately went, oh, so he had a pet bear? And I was like, no, he is the bear.
That was the program.
Statue had a bear next to the man himself, and it was like, so it was cool.
Because I knew the full story of Corporal Wojtek, the bear. So if you want to check that out, there's a great Ruining History video that describes the whole thing, which I suggest you check out if you're over the age of 12.
I do love me some history.
So yeah, toured around the place for quite a bit. Eventually, we wound up in Usher Hall, and yeah, because we all had we all ordered the VIP tickets. We were given a goodie bag with a VIP entry pass, and we got to talk with Egoraptor, Jaden, Odd One Out, Domix, Rubber Ross before the show began.
Yes.
Oh, there were quite a few memorable characters not in the audience, weren't there, Dudley?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stationary!
Oh, God. Yeah. For those of you who are curious, basically, when the show actually started, Aaron, who was on stage being the host, was basically having one of his friends go out into the audience to take suggestions from different people, and eventually he gets up onto the balcony seating area, and there was like this one fan who I couldn't see, so I'm assuming it was a girl, and they were basically asking, okay, since we're in Edinburgh for the weekend, what would you suggest we do? And she went, why don't you buy stationery? Wait, buy stationery? You're artists. That can help you. And
she was like, that stuff you use every day? Oh,
she was
like, wow.
I didn't want to say it, but she was on the verge of crazy, and soon enough it became a running joke throughout the entire show that everyone on stage began drawing stationery everywhere.
Oh, God.
Which is why in my video you see mentions of stationery all throughout.
Yeah.
Oh, running gags.
Yeah, everybody who left that room has the in-joke stationery, so it's just like, it was just hilarious. And also, obviously, you talked to that, there was a kid in front of us who was talking to Daniel about his YouTube channel and stuff, and it was like, it became like Daniel's panel whenever it wasn't the other people's panel.
Yeah.
Because
I'll get to that. I'll get to that eventually, but I do want to bring up what led to this.
Uh-oh.
So, as we brought up, because we were VIPs, we got an hour to speak to the five of them on stage before the show actually begun. And so it was nearing the end of the Q&A, and I distinctly remember one other kid, and he was like the last one to be asking a question. And so this kid stood up, and in his own words, he stated, this 5-year-old or 7-year-old kid basically stated, I have travelled far and wide from the land of Dublin to be here tonight. I bring you fan art. And
It'll leave a lasting impression.
yeah, and if that wasn't talk worthy enough, sure enough, Aaron looks around the audience, and because I had Snarf, my snail puppet, with me, he of course spots it and is like, oh my god, is that a puppet in the front row? And sure enough, I held Snarf above the audience. Everyone was amazed. I heard Jaden on stage going, oh my god! And I just immediately went, forgive me, I'm just being the weirdo here. And then
it was sweet because Jaden was like, I said, what's his name? And he went, Snarf. And Jaden went, oh, Snarf!
And then Odd One Out, he basically said, what does he sound like? And of course, I did my best Snarf impression and went, he sounds a little bit like this. And they were like, oh my god, that's so cool. And sure enough, after that, just that interaction alone was enough to make my night. But after that, the person behind me was like, oh my gosh, I love you two were amazing back then. Then the woman to the left of us scooched over and said, you know, I have a character named Snarf too. It's nice to see someone else using the name as well. And and of course, like you brought up, Dudley, the kid in front of us also became curious, and it turns out he too was a YouTuber by the name of Comfy Croc.
Comfy Croc?
Yeah. I forgot to mention him in the video. So everybody listening, subscribe to Comfy Croc. The link will be in the description. Yeah, because he was asking quite a few questions about my channel, and of course, I brought up Dudley and such, and so we both exchanged channels, and we were like, subscribe. One YouTuber to another.
Yeah.
And the icing on the cake for me was, of course, when I was highlighted for the second time, this time during the show.
Oh no, the police!
Yeah, because once again, Aaron was taking suggestions from the crowd for the final animation at the end of the show, and sure enough, I noticed Dudley was had his hand raised for most of the time, and I was using Snarf to kind of point the guy in the audience towards him, but sure enough, the guy comes into our row, and we assume he's gonna talk to you, but the microphone's held in front of me, and I was like, oh, me.
He's like, I thought it was me, and then the guy like shook his head at me and pointed at Daniel, and Daniel's leant back so that the guy could lean into me. So he's come to get Daniel to suggest his thing while Daniel's leant back, like looking comfy, just like. So it was funny. It was like, oh, it's you and me.
You know, Dudley, I've said this once, but I'll say this again. I'm sorry if I brought the attention away from you, because I know how much you like Jaden's content.
It's fine. I was happy for you. It's like I thought you got the special moment. So I think of it in a. If I ever do bring it up, I'm talking about it in a bantery way too, because I thought because it's like Snarf got more fame than I did. It's like
yet another motivation for Fresh versus Snake Staff.
Oh yeah.
Exact.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
He destroyed my ship, he took my troops, and he got Jaden's attention instead of me.
I mean, it makes sense because Snake Staff is a very menacing character.
Yeah.
I have thought because I thought the funny thing was so me and Ali had taken up. I took my Mimikyu plush up with me, and Ali brought the Dragonite that I gave her for Christmas, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And we were gonna take a photo shoot, and then while they were talking to Daniel about Snarf, me and Ali to the left of him scrambling through our rucksacks trying to get the plushies out of the bag. It's like, oh my god! And
Just
then,
a couple of adults.
Yeah, exactly.
Joan and me.
And then what was the other thing? Oh yeah, that I realised that I looked at so at the end of Scribble Showdown, they've taken a load of suggestions, like Daniel's one, which he can talk about in a minute. But basically, they take a bunch of suggestions and then they kind of make an animated cartoon where it's been predetermined where things will appear, but it's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on YouTube after that and I was browsing other versions, and it turns out when the guy came over to me, I was going to say Dr. Eggman, and it turns out that one's been chosen quite a bit in other videos, so it wouldn't have made much for variety anyway. So it was so it was fine. It was fine. I thought it was cool.
So, yeah. As for me, so when the guy in our row held the microphone towards me and Aaron was like, "What's your name, buddy?" I didn't want to promote my channel, but the opportunity was just too golden to pass up. So I basically just went, on YouTube, I am Fresh Powder, but you can call me Daniel. And he was like, "Give it up for Daniel, everybody." And and sure enough, I gave them my suggestions for what's something you would not want to be chased by. I chose Freddy Fazbear. What's something you can hold in your hand but really wouldn't want to. I kind of struggled with this and just came out with fish bones. And of course, Jaden drew up a SpongeBob fish skeleton, which was amazing. So yeah, I got quite a few comments after the show saying, "Oh my god, I was in the balcony. I could hear you. I saw you down in the row there." So
And then
Publicity.
the trouble is, I wanted to stick around and see if anyone wanted to meet up with me, but unfortunately my phone was literally about to die, and it was at 5%, and I needed the map to try and find the Premier Inn we were staying at so I didn't get lost. And basically after a whole day of traveling, I was feeling a bit tired as well, so unfortunately that's the reason I didn't stick around too long. But still, what a trip that was.
That's why you bring a charging brick with you.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat. My phone was on 4% as we got in to sit down, so I couldn't film any of it, which was sad because there was a lot of golden moments. Like when Aaron was asking around the audience, he said, "You, what's your name?" And someone went, "I'm called Aaron too." And he was like, "Oh, really?" And he went, "Yeah, but spelled correctly." And it was just like, just a load of banter going on. It was funny. And to be honest, when I knew about the question and answer session, I thought it was going to be like, we get a little private, like, kind of like, because the question and answer session was its own section for VIPs, and I thought we were going to be able to go and, like, talk to them individually, like if you're at a con or something, and they're, like, all sat next to a desk.
Mm-hmm.
And but instead we got signed posters at the door and things like that, and, like, so, like, it would have been nice. So when we did the question and answer session, I couldn't think of what to ask, so I just sat in silence. But it was cool, like, just, seeing them all there and stuff. So it was nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, who knows what happens next? That Edinburgh show was the last stop on their tour, but we might see Scribble Showdown in the future in some other form, but who knows? Until then, I'll be keeping an eye out for Jaden, Odd One Out, and Rubber Ross's videos just to see if they mentioned, if there was any mention of the guy with the puppet in row G. So yeah, love you guys. You're listening to the TBI podcast. So, in terms of recent movies that have been released this year, I think we can all agree this live-action Chip and Dale movie is definitely one of the most bizarre movies that was announced this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Now, I, for one, have seen Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers back on Playhouse Disney.
Which is an awesome show.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see. Nearly 30 years later, Disney thinks, hey, these two chipmunks can do with some attention, so let's give them a new movie. And as soon as the trailer was released, it definitely got a lot of people talking because its style was pretty ridiculous.
Oh, yeah?
Because they've established that Chip and Dale, along with many other cartoon and animated characters, all live in the real world. And if surgery can turn a man into a woman, why can't they change a person's animation style?
So,
Yeah.
Roger Rabbit Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is basically. It even has Roger Rabbit cameo in it because it's a modern day. It might as well be Who Framed Roger Rabbit 2 with Chip and Dale as the characters. Not that I've seen it yet, but I'm gonna have to check it out because it's interesting. Like.
Well, I literally saw it just a few hours ago. Now, let me tell you, this movie is all over the place. Not only do you have so many weird animation styles, but the concept is just ridiculous. And let me tell you, this movie was so strange. It was the weirdest, the most bizarre, and the most ridiculous movie I think I've ever seen in my life. But I love it!
Oh.
This movie is insane. And I don't just mean by the cameos. This story and concept is literally insane.
Okay.
This world that this movie has established says that no matter what walk of animation exists, somebody's bound to have taken it in this world. So, you could be a live-action human and live next door to a 2D animated crocodile. You've got puppetry, a claymation detective who looks remarkably like the American character Gumby.
Oh.
You've got an NPC dwarf character from a random adventure game who literally acts as he would if he was still an NPC. Always looking one direction, no matter where you are, he can't look any other direction. Because, good lord, this movie was ridiculous. And that's saying a lot because we've had some pretty bizarre movies in the past, like the live-action Cats movie and It's Uncanny Valley. And
I thought that was going to get brought up.
yeah, and of course you had Sonic's old design, which was dreadfully received online. Oh, and
So they bullied it to change.
also, spoiler alert, both of which are acknowledged in this movie too.
Oh?
Oh yeah, I heard that quote-unquote ugly Sonic was mentioned.
He's
That's
not
like how it was described, written.
he's not only mentioned, he's prominent in this. When you make ugly Sonic redeemable, that's how you know this movie's gonna be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I've heard different things about it from some people, and I knew that you were going to talk about it for this podcast, so I quickly hopped onto YouTube to hear a non-spoiler, just a brief thoughts on it, and somebody was saying how I'm still going to see it anyway, but like someone was saying how this movie kind of appeals more to people who were born in the 90s or older, and it like appeals to those people who used to like the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers cartoon. And I was there like, does it? Like, are you sure that's what's happening here? Like, they said, I don't know if kids would get it, but people who grew up around that time and know what these characters do. And I'm taking it like, yeah, but isn't that like saying you're playing off the nostalgia of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, but it's nothing to do with Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers? Like, just to ask you this, Dan, does any character from, okay, I know Montague does, is Fat Cat in it? You'd know if you saw it? Or like,
Yeah, Fat Cat's in it. Gadget and Zipper are in it. Oh god, Gadget and Zipper. Yeah,
Oh.
they're in this, but let's just say that they've made some interesting choices over the past few years. Let me tell you.
I can only imagine what they look like now that you've said that. But like, if Fat Cat and some other characters are voiced by Jim Cummings, then that is good.
But another thing that makes this movie crazy is that you've got of course cameo characters who you might recognize, but there are also some characters in this who have also aged quite a bit. Like, for instance, one character who will definitely shock you is definitely Peter Pan.
Yeah, I am aware of what Peter Pan looks like in this film.
Basically, if you've been online and you've seen artists depict cartoon characters as if they aged over time, like how old they would be nowadays, let's just say, think along those lines and you've got what Peter Pan looks like now.
Isn't Peter Pan the boy who never grows up?
Well, I asked that myself, but the movie answers that question quite a bit, so yeah.
When I saw what he looks like, I can only imagine it's like Roger Rabbit. This is my theory from the trailer, that he was part of a movie about Peter Pan. So he's the cartoon, but he's an actor who was in the cartoon. So he's grown up because he's actually in the real world and he's not from Neverland. Is the way I looked at it. I don't know, but like.
Well, that's a good guess, but I'll let you watch it for yourself for you to find out.
Oh, wow.
Is it on Disney Plus?
Yeah, it is. It was just released today.
Oh, well, I can watch that then. Okay.
This concept could be incredible because this film could be an allegory for a franchise's directions. Like, for instance, film and TV nowadays is all about, normally in most cases, it's about cashing off of people's nostalgia, and even if something new was created, you still need to go with the flow in terms of what's popular nowadays. Because there are so many different bizarre animation styles, ranging from hand-drawn, anime, CGI, puppets, claymation, even down to paper cutouts like you see in South Park. But the thing is, I think that's the idea of the movie, because it's tackling franchises and well-known media nowadays and saying, what's the best direction? Where do we take this? Do we even take it to a new direction at all, or do we leave it as it is? Because, as we've seen with the trailers, Chip and Dale have very different ways of living. Chip is still hand-drawn, but Dale, of course, has been given a CGI surgery to make him a CG model, like what you'd see nowadays. And you think to yourself, is this really the best look that you guys can stick with, or do we want to stay hand-drawn? Do we want to cash in on people's nostalgia? Do we leave the franchise where it is? I think a concept like that in a movie like this makes a lot of sense.
I think it did look like, when I saw the trailer for it, it looked like it had a lot of satire and funny jokes in it and stuff. Like, if Dale doesn't look good in CGI, that's part of the whole joke. Like, it's all to do with, if Sonic goes, let's say Sonic the Hedgehog goes from cartoon to CGI, then it's that joke about, why did they go to CGI? You know, what everybody always says and things. So it does look like a comedic film. So I'm going to watch it, and I'll probably like it. I've heard some funny things about it as well.
Oh my god. It is, let me tell you, it is hilarious, because I don't know how Disney got permission to use all these licensed properties, and that's saying a lot, because they've bought a lot of properties over the years. But how did you get that? How did you have Seth Rogen voice 4 well-known characters in one shot?
Well, Disney has a lot of money.
Oh yeah. I got a question for you, Daniel. How would this compare to another film that I haven't seen yet, which is the new Space Jam?
Well, the thing is, the new Space Jam movie is basically a time capsule of the 2000s. like how the original was a time capsule of the 90s, because the new Space Jam, everything is CG, it's got its own slew of problems and such, but still, it's a lot of fun if you ignore all that.
I mean, I remember the trailer had a shot where you see all the like Hanna-Barbera characters running around, like Jabba Jaw and the Flintstones and things like that. Even though I imagine that was a brief moment in Space Jam, do you feel like this new one gave a lot of characters the screen time they deserved? Like,
It does kind of feel like a Where's Wally or Where's Waldo comic strip, but whatever you're looking for, it'll definitely be a fun watch. Just to further expand on my point about this movie, because I think this movie has done pretty well, because let me tell you, some of the conversations that are brought up in this movie are just as insane, because it leaves you thinking, what on earth could have led to this situation? Because there's one moment where a detective's saying how they were investigating a previous crime, like, oh, Peppa Pig went missing, and so we infiltrated the Nickelodeon Junior headquarters. The Paw Patrol attacked us. Officer Jenkins will never be able to walk again. It's like, what?
oh my god.
It's conversations like that, and it's like, good lord, I want to hear more from this.
Hmm.
I was watching that movie.
That's a movie in itself.
Yeah, because this movie, I think, it has a good message, because you're allowed to experiment with different styles just as long as it isn't taken too far, because, much like a similar character in this movie, if taken too far, you could end up creating something horrific. So, because there's this whole subplot about characters who cartoon characters who go missing and end up being sold and mutated to make bootleg movies overseas.
Yeesh.
So we'll find you.
Yeah,
Sounds like paper.
that's just the tip of the iceberg. I highly advise you to watch this film for yourself, because it is insane.
I'm thinking.
But I think if anyone who knows me well was watching the podcast, they might wonder if I'm going to ask this, so I guess I'll just ask it. Do you see any Pokemon in the film? Did you see any?
Well, I did see someone dressed as Ash, but I'll need a closer look. Because if you mention any single character, I can guarantee you that someone similar has appeared in this movie at some point. Like Simpsons, yes. South Park character, yes. So,
Nice.
bootleg product that everyone apparently used. Oh yeah, that was in there.
I'm going to have to watch it tonight, I guess.
You'll be in for quite a ride, let me tell you.
I don't have any more to myself.
So yeah.
You are listening to the TBI show.
It's that time again for the month's most ridiculous headlines.
Yeah.
I haven't been here for a bit, so I need to do a returning sound effect for it. Yeah.
Good one.
Okay,
Thank you.
in this month's news, a young boy creates a new application called Splat Putin to help raise money for Ukraine. Good on you, kid. Good on you.
What, Putin? I love it.
Yeah.
To think that a kid developed an application, and not only that, but for such an amazing cause as this. Wow.
The new
What
generation.
was the first thing I pictured Splatoon when you said Splat Putin?
Splat Putin, Splatoon. Easy mistake to make. But yeah.
Sense of parody.
Yeah. Oh boy. But yeah, we're all aware of the Russian Ukraine chaos happening currently.
Yep.
So if we want to defeat our enemies, we must become the enemy. So we basically must do everything that Putin doesn't like. So we're gonna need anti-vodka marches. We're gonna need an army of gay people. Anything else we need?
One video of Putin saying he's gay.
Yeah. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am gay.
Gay. I like long beak, and that's as far as we go.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
That should be the anthem of this whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of which, this next headline is another Russian one, but it's still pretty ridiculous, and I can't believe it's actually real.
Here.
Russia deploys military-trained dolphins at the Black Sea Naval Base.
What?
Have you not heard about military-trained dolphins before?
But
Is there a thing?
how can a dolphin hold a gun?
Guys,
Is it a merfolk?
This was brought up in the Ricky Gervais show. You're seriously
that's what I
saying there are dolphins with guns?
That's how long it's been a thing. Because I mean, okay, I don't know what military-trained dolphins do, but they do have there are YouTube videos where they found beluga whales with like vests and like tracking devices and stuff around them, so they're like, you know, going around and things. Are they? I mean, I don't imagine in my head, like, I don't imagine they strap like kamikaze dolphins with grenades and then they send the dolphins in. I hope not. Anyway.
Might be that classic Doctor Who episode now.
Jeez. Oh, I actually just clicked on the headline here. Apparently there's more to it, so just going to read a bit. Animals in marine mammal programs are trained to perform tasks such as mine detection, ship and harbor protection, and to find enemy combat divers.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, dolphins would be amazing at looking for bombs in the water. Because they've got echolocation, obviously.
Jeez. Ugh. I mean, I originally thought it was like, I mean, it's been brought up in the Ricky Gervais show, but I like imagining my own interpretation of that. Like, watch out! It just in Ukraine. Watch out! The dolphins are coming! What's he saying? He say, for the motherland! And he flips a grenade with his tail. For the motherland!
Like Ricky, there's also the bit where Ricky's like, what's that, Flipper? He's saying, go punk, make my day.
But, sheesh, I mean,
Guy bit.
the Russians have been coming up with some pretty ridiculous plans, and we have even stupider ways of taking them out. Because just recently, I saw this headline where a group of invading Russian soldiers were stopped because somebody switched the street signs.
What?
Well, that's it.
Is that all it takes to stop an army?
Apparently.
Which way to Ukraine? Oh, the sign says that way. Okay. Idiots.
It's funny they don't need a sign to find my Ukrainians, right?
All joking aside, we send our support to everyone in Ukraine, and
Yeah.
we will get through this. Don't worry. We will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think tanks have sat nav built in?
Probably.
Let's leave that to the imagination. Anyway, here's the next headline. A man who married a hologram of Hatsune Miku is devastated as he can no longer speak to his wife as the software has expired.
Oh, no.
I mean, this was brought up in the first year of the podcast, how we talked about how there's devices that can produce holograms of women, and sometimes people can get a bit too attached to them, and this is the ultimate extreme in this case because, sheesh, that is depressing. The fact that till expiration to his part.
Yes, this is the future.
Thoughts, Dudley?
I don't know what to say. I'm racking my brains trying to think of something to say, but I don't know what to say.
Maybe it's for the best.
Oh, dear.
Do I make a dark joke or do I be sympathetic? I can't tell.
Maybe both.
Well, maybe...
Should have got those double A's.
Oh.
There. Okay.
Anyway, the last headline that I have is this. The Queen's Golden Wii is now up for auction.
What?
First of all, I didn't know the Queen played Nintendo.
We thank God.
That's actually what I thought you meant. So, what is this golden Wii? I dread to think.
I know.
It's I'm looking at the picture now. It's literally a gold-plated Nintendo Wii and controller. So.
Oh, it is actually a Nintendo. Okay.
I was thinking of something completely different.
Michael.
Michael.
Ugh. Sheesh. That's a different type of golden Wii.
That's not true.
So, sheesh, it makes me wonder what the Queen's been playing on that Wii.
Smash Brothers. Definitely Smash Brothers.
Or, maybe Kingdom Hearts? I don't know. Do you reckon she's a Pokemon fan?
Well, oh yeah, because... Oh, nah, she wouldn't like Yamper, because Yamper's like a bulldog, right, Rowan?
It's not a bulldog! It's a corgi!
We could play, come down to your house and smack you if you keep this up.
Ugh.
Oh, I know who not to make someone mad now.
Well, those are the month's headlines, I guess. I'm Randy Newman, and you're listening to TBI. Well, aside from the Chip and Dale movie, there's been quite a few good movies that have been airing recently. One of which I know Dudley has seen, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yes!
Yes. Nice.
I've yet to see it, but I want to see it if I can.
Yes.
So, Dudley, tell us about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing.
Yes.
And I think we have to begin by simply saying, I know for someone it will already be amazing because it actually says fresh powder in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it for myself, and of course, Dr. Robotnik name drops me. So that's another person who said my name.
So your character's in the Sonic universe now?
Yeah. See ya, kids. Enjoy the fresh powder.
For context, in case you don't see it, there's a point where there's an avalanche headed towards Sonic, and Dr. Robotnik goes, "Enjoy the fresh powder."
On that note, I need to ask, what was your first thoughts when hearing that line?
Let's just say, the amount of all this time that I've got the name fresh powder built into my subconscious. Both times he said it made me suddenly on alert, like my body just went what like I forgot he said it until before the second time I watched it, and then I heard it again. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now, because you just can't help but notice. You just I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I actually had a lot to say about this film. I'm going a bit like, but basically, the film was really good. Like the first one was good as a setup movie,
Mm-hmm.
and the second one obviously it introduces characters like my boy Tails, because Tails is amazing and adorable and amazing and adorable and amazing, and then Jim Carrey as Robotnik is always priceless, and also his sidekick Agent Stone is also hilariously devoted to him, which is just really funny. And the other thing, it's just it has a tragic ending. It's Jim Carrey has quote unquote retired from films.
Oh. Just when the Sonic movies were getting interesting.
I know. See, the Sonic films are being made by the same people who made Fast and Furious, and I'm like, Sonic films need to have like 10 sequels. I want that to happen. And it doesn't. Jim Carrey left at the second one.
While I respect his choice, still, you looked like you were having fun as Robotnik. We enjoyed your performances, but I guess if there were any other villain in the Sonic franchise that could take his place, I guess now's their time to shine.
I was just going to say, I wonder if they'll have an in-universe explanation as to why Robotnik will look different.
There is a post-credit scene that sets up something, and like it's part this arc behind what it sets up would make more sense if Robotnik was present for it. So I don't know. Like, but Jim Carrey said if he ever came back to a film, then it would be after something that was to him was like gold standard. Like it had to be something he really was passionate about. And when he talked about the first Sonic film, and he basically said he has a place in his heart for it because it happened during when everybody had COVID, and it was like, you know, giving people enjoyment during that point and stuff like that. So I'd like to think he would be tempted to come back. So
Apparently,
I hope he does.
Apparently, he'd be interested in writing the script for any future Sonic media and such. I mean, I know for a fact that Knuckles is getting his own series within the universe of this franchise, so that's something.
So that's going to be a Paramount Plus thing, I imagine, because I've heard that there's actually a Halo series at the moment, which isn't doing too well on the...
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen any yet, but I've seen people talk about it, and it's got some controversial things, so... Yeah.
Well, at least back to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. As for me, the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie is alright. I mean, sure, an origin story's fine, I guess, but it didn't really feel like Sonic. I usually try to think the sequel will likely be better than the first film, because the sequel, every character's established, you know what their backstory is, so now we can just get into the creative stuff and just make it as fun as possible, because Shrek 2 is a prime example of that, because the original Shrek film I wasn't a fan of, because even back then I was like, ugh. But I may be a little boy, but even this is a little too disgusting for me. But the sequel drew me in because it half the time Shrek isn't even an ogre, and they pull off a lot more creative stuff. The same thing applies with this movie.
We had this conversation. I completely agree, because like the first movies can be good, but a lot of it is spent going like, hi, my name is such and such. This is my personality. This is my sense of humor. Oh, hi, I'm other character. My name is such and such. Here is how I interact with you. And it's all set up. That's what essentially first movies are, is set up for these worlds and characters.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a remake and you have to establish characters. It feels more like, you know, you're ready.
So,
you know their backstory.
And considering the design we could have gotten for Sonic, it could have ended up being a lot worse.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
However, with the sequel, wow, it genuinely does feel like a Sonic movie now, because we have Robotnik's insane robot designs, we've got Tails and Knuckles shining through, we've got the Chaos and Master Emeralds playing key roles and setting up future plots, and it's like, yep, this definitely feels like a Sonic movie.
So, based on that, like, what would you say, ignoring the fact that it was an origin story, what would you say about the first one didn't feel like a Sonic movie to you? Was it because it was missing some of those elements?
I guess because it was just Sonic half the time, and it was like, this guy's going on a road trip instead of, smashing robots left and right. He apparently likes to make subtle toilet humor and sometimes straight up farting half the time. And it's like, no, I don't want to hear that. At least in the second movie, if they're going to make fart jokes, they at least just mention it. Because I brought this up before, how toilet humor to me should only be acceptable if it's just mentioned and not straight up farting. Because once is bad enough, but when you do it frequently, then you've lost us.
Yeah, but I excuse Sonic 1's joke because it was like brief and it was like pretty straightforward. It's not like, and it was tame compared to some of the more recent stuff we had. Like, I just saw the scene from the Yogi Bear movie where he's just like sucking on a witchetty grub or something, and it's like, okay, it's a bit like grim,
Yeah.
Whereas Sonic and Detective Pikachu
everything in that sort of humor.
Yeah.
It's like back with Shrek. Like, obviously, the sequel was better than the first. Well, I used to watch the second one the most, and like, obviously, between that and say, I use like Rio as an example. Like, between Shrek and Rio, sequels weren't necessarily as good as the first film. I feel like after Rio, we reached the sort of point where sequel films sometimes were better, and like they were actually getting really good. And this one is amazing. Like, I like both films, but I'm more likely to put the second one on.
Yeah.
It's also, I have to say, like, this movie, Jim Carrey as Robotnik is the same sort of like kind of humor and villainy I kind of try to put in the Snake Staff character. Like, it just feels like that sort of like, fun sort of dynamic between Sonic and Robotnik and stuff. It's just,
Well, one last movie I do want to bring up before we bring this podcast to a close is The Batman.
Oh, yes. And this is the movie I see.
So, I saw it for myself. I quite enjoyed it. It's quite unique because it was quite a surprise to see a Batman movie that actually acts like, well, for lack of a better word, actually act like a detective comic. Because it acts less like a superhero movie and more like a mystery, like a Sherlock Holmes mystery. Like, whoa, my God, this is so smart. Also, speaking of smart, sheesh, I can't believe we live in a reality where the Riddler could be just as scary as the Joker. Yeah, because the Riddler in this is definitely not the 90s Jim Carrey that we've known to expect. This Riddler seriously gives me like Jeffrey Dahmer vibes. When he's not in his costume, he doesn't look all that threatening, but he's just so deranged you can't help but feel afraid.
It's just like, it's funny to see him doing his own dirty work as well at the start of the film, because you see this guy like kill someone and you think, oh, that's going to be like someone working for the Riddler, and then you find out like, oh, it was him the whole time. Like, and then like, obviously, so I got a present ages ago, and it was like this Batman comic, but it's really dark. Like some of it's really like grim. Like, and this film kind of gave me that vibe, those sort of vibes with the Riddler. Like he's like he's not like the Riddler I think of is from like the Batman the animated series.
Yeah.
He was really cool. But this Riddler is like unhinged, you know, and he does a good job of like, the Riddler from Gotham is also really good as well. But this Riddler's different. Like he's like one in the Batman is like, you know, like deranged in his mentality and stuff like that.
You know, at the same time, I am happy that this is the Riddler we got, but at the same time, a couple years ago, I remember hearing that Jim Parsons, who plays Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, he stated that if he was ever in a superhero movie, that he wanted to play the Riddler.
Yeah.
Just basically imagine evil Sheldon and the way he talks, and you have yourself a pretty interesting take on the Riddler. Like, so, Batman, riddle me this. You know, just that mental image of him holding the cane up and just circling him, like, speaking in Sheldon's way of speaking. It's like, wow, that could be incredible. But until then, we just have to keep on dreaming.
Yeah. I am kind of glad we got an actual villain who's actually scary apart from the Joker. You know?
Yeah. I also have to say, the opening 10 minutes of Batman, I was satisfied with the film just from that first 10 minutes. Like, if it had been revealed, like, as a 10-minute short, it would, like a fan film or something, it would have been amazing. Like, just the fear that Batman spreads to all the criminals in the city, that he doesn't even have to be there, for them to, like, be scared of him, and then they end up screwing themselves over because of, like, being... I was there, like, I've never seen Batman look so cool in so long. But, and this is from, I haven't seen Twilight, but the guy who played Batman is really good.
Oh, yeah, because apparently, Robert Pattinson was in Twilight, and he went from Cedric Diggory to the Caped Crusader, so times change, and sometimes that's a good change. Especially after a franchise like Twilight.
The guy who was the sparkling vampire joke for many years became Batman, and he's really good at being Batman.
So yeah, we've just about run out of time for this podcast, so anything you want to bring up before we end it off?
The only thing is that I'm working on some specials, so that's going to come out very soon, I hope so. Yay.
Rowan?
Good to be back.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, until next time, guys, we'll sign off there, so see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.